Hello, people. Day 4. Yes. Thank you for joining me again. I hope you're tucked in and you're ready for your poem, you're ready for your story, and you're ready for a useless fact. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the feedback that I've received from you. I really appreciate. The book is still on sale. If you don't have a copy, talk to me and I will send it to you. There's an M-Pesa number going up chini. When I receive it immediately, you will receive your miracle of a book, my brother. Tell your sister amen. On to our next segment, a useless fact that it does not hurt to know. Do you know that honey does not spoil? You could feasibly eat a 3,000-year-old honey without any problem. Okay, so onto our poem. We're doing poem number 4. Number 4. And so enjoy. It's called For How Long? For how long will I sit on the promenade, perspire on the beach, yelling hoorays and criticize when a mistake is done? For how long? For how long will I look my eyes on the screen, rocking my chair, thinking it's better than trying my dream and failing? Being a spectator compliments my fears. For how long? For how long will I live in a world of fantasy, envisioning heroic acts, sketching plans to change the world, but being pessimistic is the first step that I take? For how long? When will I spread my wings, see mountains as a measure of my greatness rather than obstacles? When will I see dreams are always meant to be bigger because that's where God thrives? For how long? And this poem speaks to, I think, our generation right now. Because you can talk big game, but as long as you don't take any action, as long as you're sitting on the couch and criticizing the people who are trying, there's nothing. You can have big dreams, but if you don't take action, there's nothing you can do. There's no excuse. Let me tell you a bit of the story of making this book. It has taken me almost 3 years for me to even have it out and publish it. And I had waited for friends to help me because, I had no money to do it. But there's something that's called determination, the power of 0 shilling. After waiting for a very long time and calling some of my friends, some of them were designers, some of them were good with this thing of printing, but everyone was busy, and that is understandable. And so I don't wanna accuse anyone of anything. But then one day I told myself this year, during the quarantine period, is that if I continue waiting for people, this thing will never come out. So I told myself I will teach myself to do all these things. So if you see the design of the book, I did it. I went around town looking for printers for 2 days. You see, when I wanted also to do this thing, I asked my friends to help me, but they're busy. Right now you can't ask people to do things for free. So even the editing of the videos I'm doing, I actually have really I've taught myself to do basic video editing. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. Ebu, stand up and live out your dream. This poem actually reminded me of a speech that was given by Roosevelt, one of the president of the US. He says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who faces mud by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knows victory nor defeat. It is better for you to try and fail than for you to continue thinking, what if?" And that is the challenge that I'm giving you today. Hey, tafakari ya babu. I feel so deep right now. I think this is where I put my hands on the chin, and look at you intensely. Anyway, story of today comes from Oga, the land of Oga, comes from Nigeria. And it's called The Sky. Yes. So I hope you're tucked in and you're ready for your good night story. Here goes the story. Effiong Edem lived in a small town. He had a very pretty daughter named Affiong. All the young men of the all the young men wanted to marry her on account of her beauty, but she refused all of them, although her parents told her not to be so haughty. Affiong was very vain and said she would only marry the best looking man in the country. He would have to be young and strong and lovable. Most of the men whom her parents wanted her to marry were rich, but they were old and ugly. The girl therefore continued to disobey her parents. Her disobedience grieved them very much. The skull that lived in the spirit land heard of the beauty of this virgin and decided that he would try to win her. To make a good appearance, then he went among his friends and borrowed different parts of the body from them. All of the best. From one he got a good head, from another a body, from a third a strong arms, and from fourth a fine pair of legs. These parts made him a complete body and a fine-looking man. He was, in the words of today, he was dripping, man. He next went from a spirit land to the town market to see Affiong. About this time, Affiong heard that someone had seen in the market a very fine man who was better looking than any of the men of the town. Therefore, she rushed to the market where she saw the skull in his borrowed beauty. She fell in love with him and at once invited him at her home. The skull was delighted and went home with her. When he arrived, he was introduced by Affiong to her parents, and he immediately asked their consent to marry her. At first, they refused because they did not want her to marry a stranger, but at last they agreed. The skull lived with Affiong for 2 days in her parents' house. Then he said that he wished to take his wife back to his distant country. To this, the girl readily agreed because he was such a fine-looking man, but her parents tried to persuade her not to go. However, being very headstrong, she made up her mind to go, and they departed together. After they had been gone for a few days, the father consulted the oracle and found out that his daughter's husband to be belonged to the spirit land, and that there she will surely die. Therefore, all mourned her as dead. After walking for several days, the bride and the groom crossed the border between the spirit land and the abode of human beings. Just as soon as they entered the spirit land, first of all, one man came to the skull and asked for his legs, then another for his head, and the next for his body, and so on until in a few minutes the skull was left by itself in all its natural ugliness. At this, the girl was very much frightened. She wanted to return home, but the skull would not let her leave him and ordered her to go with him. When they arrived at the skull's home, they found his mother, who was very old, too weak to do anything but to creep about. Affiong tried her best to help her. She cooked her food and brought her water and firewood. The old creature was very grateful for these things and soon began to like Affiong. One day, the old woman told Affiong that she was very sorry for her because all the people in the spirit land were cannibals. When they heard there was a human being in their country, they will come down and kill her and eat her. The old man then hid Affiong. Since Affiong had looked after her so well, the old woman promised that she will send her back to her home as soon as possible, if in the future she will obey her parents. This Affiong gladly agreed to. Then the old woman sent for the spider, which was a very clever hairdress, and had him dress Affiong hair in the latest style. She also gave her anklets and other things in return for her kindness. She then asked her spirit to call the winds to come and carry Affiong home. Very soon afterward, the breeze brought Affiong to the door of her parents' home and left her there. When the parents saw their daughter, they were very glad, as they had long since given up as dead. The father spread soft animal skin on the ground from where his daughter was standing all the way to the house so that her feet should not be soiled. Affiong then walked to the house, and her father called all the young girls who belonged to Affiong's circle to come and dance, and the feasting and dancing continued for 8 days and 8 nights. Hey, this dad knows how to throw a party. Sindio can bring the house down, man. When rejoicing was over, the father reported to the head chief of the town what had happened to Affiong. The chief then passed a law that parents should never allow their daughters to marry strangers who came from a distant land. Then the father told his daughter to marry a friend of his, and she willingly consented. Affiong lived with him for years, and they had many, many children. Tell me what you have learned from this story, but this is very relevant to our society right now. We marry because of good looks. We look out for relationships because of the money they have. And how many people have ever been in a relationship where maybe you dated this guy because he had money, or you dated him because he had a car, only to realize later that this guy was actually living on borrowed money and was driving a friend's car. So let me hear your thoughts on that. Right now, the verse of the day, and it comes from 1 Samuel 16:7, NIV. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at their heart. Have a good night and take care.